Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too, because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. Raised fist medium dark skin tone. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. In the heart of South London, on a night when the rain fell in sheets and the wind howled through the narrow streets, the world seemed to shrink. Car headlights cut through the gloom. Shops pulled down their shutters, and people hurried past each other, heads bowed against the storm. But on this one cold and chaotic night, a simple act of kindness would ripple through the lives of two families, changing their destinies forever. Her name was Clara Johnson. At 52, she was a woman carved from a life of hard work, her hands rough, her feet weary from years spent scrubbing floors and polishing the lives of the wealthy. Her meager earnings as a maid in a grand Kensington house were a constant struggle against the relentless tide of rent in Brixton. She had no children, no husband waiting for her, just a small one-room flat and an old black umbrella, a loyal friend that had seen her through countless storms. That night, as Clara made her way home from the bus stop, she saw them, two small figures huddled against the wall of a closed grocery store, their forms barely visible in the watery glow of a street lamp. At first, she thought they might be waiting for someone, but as she drew closer, a cold certainty settled in her heart. They were two little girls, twins no older than 9. Their long blonde hair was plastered to their cheeks, their thin dresses soaked through and clinging to their bodies. They held on to each other, shivering and crying, as if a storm of fear and abandonment were raging within them. Clara's heart sank. She ignored the ache in her knees and knelt down, her voice a soft, gentle melody against the storm's roar. "Oh, my sweethearts, what are you doing out here? You'll catch your death." Their wide, blue eyes, filled with primal fear, met hers. Words seemed to have been stolen from them, their lips quivering with silent sobs. But something in Clara's tired brown eyes, a profound kindness that transcended her circumstances, made them trust her. We lost our driver," one of them finally whimpered, her voice a fragile thread. "He was supposed to take us home, but he left us. We don't know why." Clara's chest tightened. She felt the cold rain seeping into her own bones, but all she could focus on was the profound vulnerability of the two children before her. Without a second thought, she unwound the wool scarf from her neck and wrapped it around their small, trembling shoulders. Then she opened her old black umbrella and held it over their heads, leaving herself exposed to the relentless rain. "Don't you cry now," she whispered, her voice a promise. "I'll help you. You're safe with me." The girls leaned into her, their tiny hands gripping hers, their trust absolute. The one with the tangled pink ribbon whispered, "I'm Emily." The other, her voice barely a murmur, said, "I'm Sophie." Clara smiled, a genuine warmth that defied the chattering of her teeth. Emily and Sophie. Lovely names for lovely girls. "Come, we can't stay out here." Slowly, her knees protesting with a dull ache, she rose. With one hand, she held the umbrella aloft, a small shield against the downpour. With the other, she held both of their small hands, their footsteps stumbling beside her as they navigated the slippery pavement. Her own shoes were ruined, the thin leather no match of puddles, but she paid it no mind. Her world had narrowed to the two small lives in her keeping. They finally reached the police station, the glass doors sliding open to welcome them into a pool of warmth and light. The girls let out a collective sigh of relief as Clara led them inside. A tall officer with kind brown eyes, James Miller, came forward immediately, his face etched with concern at the sight of the soaked children. Clara, still holding their hands, explained what had happened, her words humble and direct. The officer knelt, his voice a calm anchor in the chaos. "You're safe now. We'll make sure you get back to your family." But Emily buried her face in Clara's sleeve, a fresh wave of sobs racking her body. "Please don't leave us. Stay." Clara glanced at the officer, and he gave her a small, understanding nod. And so Clara stayed. Hours passed. The clock on the wall ticked a slow rhythm as the rain beat against the windows. Clara sat on a wooden bench, her arms wrapped around the girls, a silent promise of security. She told him stories of her childhood in Jamaica, of climbing mango trees, and running barefoot through sun-drenched fields. She sang them the soft, soothing songs her grandmother had sung to her, and when their sobs finally gave way to the slow, steady breaths of sleep, she gently brushed the wet hair from their foreheads and kissed them. What Clara didn't know was that Emily and Sophie Parker were the daughters of Richard Parker, a name synonymous with wealth and power in London. He was the billionaire owner of a technology empire, a man who commanded boardrooms and headlines, but whose greatest treasure was his two little girls. When Richard arrived at the station, his face pale with panic, the sight that greeted him brought him to his knees. His two daughters were curled up against a woman in a faded coat, sleeping soundly, their fear finally at rest. Clara looked up, startled by the expensive suit, the shining watch, and the ring of security guards. Richard didn't see the suit or the watch. He saw a stranger who had become a guardian. He sank to his knees, gathering his daughters into his arms, his voice thick with raw, unfiltered emotion. "My girls, my sweet girls." Tears mixed with their damp hair as he held them, a man who had lost his composure and found his world restored. Emily stirred, her small hand pointing toward Clara. "Daddy, she saved us. She gave us her umbrella. She stayed with us." Richard's gaze, full of a gratitude that words couldn't contain, lifted to Clara. "You stayed with them?" "I couldn't leave them," she said, her voice soft and humble. "They were cold and afraid." The officer explained the kidnapping plot, and Richard's face hardened with fury. But when his eyes returned to Clara, they softened once more. "I owe you more than I can ever repay." Clara shook her head quickly. "No, sir. I just did what anyone should do." But Richard knew better. He had seen too many people in his world turn away from a struggle that wasn't their own. He recognized true kindness when it stood before him. Days later, the driver was caught, and the nightmare was over for the Parker family. But Clara's life was quietly, irrevocably changing. Richard invited her to his Chelsea mansion. She arrived nervously, her old shoes polished, her hands trembling. The house was a world away from her reality, with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. But Richard's welcome was genuine, and the twins, dressed neatly now, ran to her with squeals of joy, wrapping their arms around her waist. "We missed you," they cried. Richard smiled, his sincerity filling the air. "Clara, you are part of our family now. Money alone can't thank you, so I want to offer you something more. A new life, a job here in my home with a proper salary, security, and your own place. You'll never struggle again." Tears welled in Clara's eyes. "Sir, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," his sister Margaret said gently, "because you deserve it." Clara accepted, her voice a whisper. From that day forward, she worked not as a maid, but as a caretaker for the twins, a beloved grandmother figure they had never known. Her one-room flat in Brixton was replaced by a comfortable home, and for the first time in her life, she had savings and dignity. But most of all, she had a bond that money could never buy. The story of Clara Johnson spread, a quiet testament to the power of compassion. People realized her true wealth was not in possessions, but in her character. Richard Parker, the billionaire, would often say in interviews, "The greatest gift I ever received was not my fortune, but the night a poor woman gave my daughters her umbrella." Life teaches us that compassion is the greatest treasure. And so, when people look back on that stormy night in South London, they didn't just see rain. They saw a woman, weary and poor, who became a light in two little girls' darkest hour. They remembered that true wealth is not measured by possessions, but by the kindness we give others.